When you think about controversial art pieces, you probably think about nudity or political statements or a bull and a little girl. You probably don't think about bright yellow geometric sculptures, but that is exactly what became Melbourne's most controversial art piece. This is Vault. Hi, welcome to Arty Facts. My name is Jess Perkins and I'm here with Dave Warneke and Matt Stewart as we sit inside a big, beautiful yellow piece of art called Vault.
Oh, I was wondering why you invited us here.
Yeah.
I've heard of outsider art. It feels like we're insider art now.
It's like we're sitting under a colourful overpass.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, that's beautiful. I imagine the artist would love that kind of feedback.
It's like a very nice bus shelter.
Yeah.
No. It's got a very interesting history, this particular piece of art. And I'd love to tell you a little bit about it, if you'll indulge me.
I'd love to hear about it.
Well, first of all, let's describe what it is that we're sitting underneath. Obviously, a very large-scale sculpture. It's about 5-ish metres tall, made from welded steel, painted this beautiful, bright, warm yellow, which you see around Melbourne quite a bit now, and that is not a coincidence. It's kind of because of this particular piece of art, which I'll talk a little bit about later.
It's called Vault Yellow.
Yeah. It's geometric abstraction. If you had to categorise it, I'm guessing that's probably what you would have said.
Hope the surgery went well.
Abstraction. So yeah, a type of art that uses geometric shape and form to generate abstract compositions. So essentially it's not trying to be anything or look like anything. It's just its own, it's its own thing.
You do you.
Exactly, thank you, yes. It's you do you art.
Yeah.
I think is the best way to talk about it. So it currently sits here outside the Australian Centre for Contemporary Art, or ACCA, in South Bank, but it hasn't always lived here. In fact, it has been the subject of a lot of criticism and controversy over the last 40-ish years.
Okay.
So a little bit of backstory. So Vault is a piece by award-winning sculptor Robertson-Swann. He was born in Sydney in 1941.
Ron Swan?
That's why you took the Robertson.
Yeah.
Ron Robertson-Swann.
You've got to get a bit of distance between the Ron and the Swan.
Ron
And it's
Swan.
double N Swan, so it's very different to Ron,
Yeah.
It's completely different.
His name's Ron Swan.
Ron Swan. Ron Robertson-Swann.
Ron Robson.
Ron Swan.
Ron Rob Swan.
Ron Rob Swan.
We'll get bogged down in that. He was born in 1941 in Sydney, and he studied under Lyndon Dadswell at the National Art School before moving to the UK in the early 60s to study under Anthony Caro and Philip King at St Martin's School of Art, a very prestigious art school. This is a very cool description of him. He's been described by Australian sculpture historian and critic, very specific art critic. Just sculptures for me.
I imagine there's dozens of these.
Yeah.
These jobs.
His name's Graham Sturgeon, but how's this description that Graham said of Ron Rob Swan? Says, the most consistent of the classic formalists, that is, the one most concerned to produce a sculpture which, while obviously of its era, transcends consideration of style in search of a timeless sense of rightness.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I understood like every third word, but it sounds good.
I know,
Yeah.
a timeless sense of rightness.
Yeah. And it's like, yes, it's of its era, but it's also timeless. Love that. That's how you want to be described as a person and an artist, I think.
Yes.
I think of you in those sort of terms.
Do you? Is it
You're
because
of your era.
Is it
and
because I just said it's a really great way to be described and you're being kind?
No.
You think I'm of my era?
That's just something that's been ringing around in my head for a bit now.
But if I'm of my era, am I also timeless?
Yeah.
Wow.
But finally, Sturgeon's put it into words.
And to learn a little bit more about Vault, I'm here with Dr. Amy Spears at RMIT School of Art. Can you tell me a bit about whether or not the controversy of Vault had an impact on Ron Robertson-Swann's career moving forward?
He said he felt a bit hurt about the public response and was kind of a bit shocked by it. He was hoping that the sculpture would be sort of embraced by the public, and I think he specifically designed it for people to be able to walk through it and sort of, it was supposed to accommodate people and, be enjoyed by people. And so he was surprised by the reaction. He's been interviewed more recently and he said ultimately it didn't actually hurt his career and it made him famous, the controversy. He's like, even taxi drivers know me.
Now, this wasn't a sculpture that Ron just whipped up in the studio or the backyard on a whim. It had a very, very clear purpose for its design. So, back in 1976, an architectural competition was launched by Melbourne City Council to design a permanent Melbourne City Square, which we kind of know of on Swanston Street between Melbourne Town Hall and St Paul's Cathedral, where the Burke and Wills statue is no longer, but it was for a very long time. And the competition was won by Denton Corker Marshall Architects.
Wow.
Corker. I'd describe this as a bloody corker.
It's an absolute corker.
I'd call it a Denton.
I'd call it a Marshall.
Yeah, there you go.
So DCM were the architects, and if DCM rings a bell at all, it might be
Oh, yeah, the
because
snacks from your lunchbox. The rice bubble treats, love them.
they were good, weren't they? And it was LCMs, and it didn't stand for anything, did it?
That's
So
right.
have we discussed that so many times?
Whereas DCM stands for those three words you said before.
Denton,
One of them being corker.
Corker, Marshall, correct. So yeah, if DCM rings a bell at all to anybody, it might be because they've also been behind buildings and structures like the Melbourne Museum, the Exhibition Centre, the Melbourne Gateway, big yellow chip
Oh, yeah.
along near
This
the freeway.
feels like the cousin of the chip.
Absolutely it does, yeah. They also did like the War Memorial in Canberra, a bunch of other really noteworthy and
Holy shit,
yeah, a lot
eh?
of big buildings, not just in size, but I mean like significance.
Yeah.
So the brief for the Melbourne City Square was very complex, and DCM's
Hey, it's meant to be brief, mate. Eh? You're not really fitting the brief here, making it complex. It would have been a bit of fun.
That would-
I'd be fun to have around the office.
yeah, I think you'd be a great architect.
If any architectures are watching,
And you need someone to just brighten up the office a little
yeah,
bit.
or architects.
Yeah,
But either, I could, yeah, have me around. Great for banter.
yeah. Just a few sort
I'll-
of architect puns.
Yeah, you could employ me to stand by the water cooler
Yeah.
and just have a few zips, a few zaps.
Yeah,
bit
yeah.
I
about.
reckon that'd be a pretty dehydrated office.
Yeah.
Avoiding that section.
He's into
Yeah,
it.
I
you
know.
Don't even bother. Bring your own water, to be honest. It's simply not worth it. So the Melbourne City Square, the brief was very complex, and DCM's design included a giant video screen, restaurants, shops, outdoor cafes, a glazed canopy, a sunken amphitheatre,
Okay, it sounds like they just let a 5-year-old describe what they want. A ball pit.
a graffiti wall,
Yeah, a big slide.
a reflecting pool,
Ronald McDonald high-fiving me. Motorbike.
my dog.
My dog.
It also had,
Piggyback on my dad. Okay, all right.
all right,
All right, well, we can do the first thing. You can have the carousel, you can have the big screen. How about
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
All right,
I'll take
I'll
it.
take that.
I'm not even done. It had more.
Okay.
There was a water wall as well, and then a big open area of the square too. It had enough space for all of that, and just a big
And a
open
big open
area. So it was quite an ambitious project, and Melbourne City Council wanted a statement art piece made specifically for Melbourne City Square. So DCM, who as we know were designing City Square, which was sort of a competition to win that bid, they put on their own competition.
Oh, subcom.
Yeah, to find an art piece that would complement the square's design. Now, if you know Melbourne or you visit Melbourne, you would notice that the city has a lot of bluestone buildings. You know, it's got a general kind of blue-grey vibe to it. And Robertson-Swann wanted to create a piece to offset some of the greyness and the straight lines that exist in the city. And he won the bid to create the piece for the city square.
Right, so they needed something fun in the square,
Yeah.
other than the video screen, the water wall, the glass carousel.
The ball pit.
The
They
ball-
needed something that would really make it stand out, you know?
It was going to be a grey video wall.
Only black and white.
Yeah.
So we can't do colour. So his design met the challenge of being a grand interlocked sculpture. I guess that's specifically what they were looking for. And as you
Okay.
can see, it's pretty grand and it's quite interlocked.
Yeah.
Hence, we are not getting rained
Yeah,
on
that's right.
now.
We're getting a lot of shelter.
I, for one, love interlocked sculptures.
I can't
I've
help
just
it.
learned about myself.
Can't help but think though, Jess, that we are not in the Melbourne City Square.
Correct. Yeah. That's going to come up pretty soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Video screen.
Yeah, I know.
No
I
video
want to watch the
screen.
80s videos.
It also met the requirement of being bold, visually simple, and a strong focal point, which would offset the formal character of the square. So when they're saying like, we need something complementary, really they need something completely different, but in a complementary kind of way.
I love these art terms you use.
I know art. But while the then unnamed piece, didn't have a name for a while, did meet these objectives, it was a little too abstract for public taste. Before it was even built, it began to attract criticism from some media and council factions on the grounds that its modern form was thought to not complement the location, which is pretty ironic given it was chosen because it complemented the location.
I'd love to know if Melbourne's ever liked anything at first. Like any building or piece of art. I would love to know if there's ever been something that we've actually...
That we've backed. That we've gone,
That's it.
A bit of funding into that? Great. Yeah, it sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, money well spent.
Love that. Can't wait to see it.
I think the public just found it very radical at the time, and the public were unused to sort of abstraction and that sort of modernist sculpture. Although that sort of sculpture was quite representative of the kind of trendy public art at the time. I don't know whether public art should appeal to the public. I think it's really context specific. I think it's nice that sometimes artworks challenge people, and this work certainly did.
It also had a cost of about $70,000, which was seen to be pretty exorbitant, a bit excessive.
Oh, that sounds cheap to me.
70 grand?
70 grand?
That's pretty good.
I could knock this up for 70 grand.
You could or you couldn't?
Couldn't.
Right, how much?
Back then maybe.
How much?
Oh, I wouldn't do this for less than 10 mil.
10 mil, you reckon?
I wouldn't know where to frickin' start. Firstly, I'd have to go to art school.
Mine would be made of cardboard if it was up to me.
Oh, that's
quite
good.
a lot of cardboard.
Would it still be this thick?
Yeah, really thick cardboard.
Yeah, okay.
A bit of papier-mâché.
Hey, now, I learnt this the hard way, but that does not work outdoors.
It doesn't.
Once I punched a hole in a wall at home, an outside wall, while my family was away, and I paper-mâché'd the wall back up, and that did not last.
I have follow-up questions. Why did you punch a wall?
It was as a joke.
Okay.
It was a bit of faux anger.
Sure.
And I took it too far.
Okay.
Now who's laughing?
Yeah.
No one. No one's
But
laughing.
anyway, the point is the paper mache does not do the job outdoors. So you're going to have to go back to the drawing board. Maybe you can come to uni with me.
Okay, let's do it.
Maybe, we could just go to Steele University.
I feel like you don't need to because it's actually already been built.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
40
We could just buy it.
Yeah.
So if we get the 10 mil, I'll just go, here's 70 grand for you, Robertson-Swann.
Yep, thanks so much.
Good
job.
Good job. We'll take it from here.
But 70 grand, 4 decades ago?
Yeah, this is in late 70s when it was first.
That's got to be a lot more now.
It's a lot of money. And I think maybe the Melbourne City Council felt a bit of hesitation or concern once the public and media started to seem unsupportive of it. They were sort of like, no, maybe we shouldn't go ahead with this.
They started distancing themselves. That's when they started saying, we wanted something complementary, not different.
Yeah, but like different, but not that different. But Patrick Mccackey, an incredible name, one of the most eminent and admired art historians in Australia with an incredibly long and impressive resume. He gave his full support to the work. He applauded it for design excellence.
He loved it so much he macacked his dax. Great, sir.
It's DCM backwards. Macacked dax.
That's actually what it stands for.
That's what it stands for.
We're trying to talk about art.
I know. We're experts here, okay?
We know things and we're respectable people.
But I imagine that when Mccackey puts his Dacky behind a project, the whole public goes, well, if he likes it.
Exactly right. Mccackey is like the same age as Ron Robertson-Swann, but, and they were both established already in the art world. They're in their 30s, late 30s by this time. But Mccackey already had a reputation for like being very good and knowing what he's talking about. So the Melbourne City Council were like, okay, if he thinks it's all right.
And surely with art and stuff, you've got to trust the experts to some degree.
Right. Yeah, you would think so.
Because I mean, like, if you didn't tell me, I wouldn't know whether this was good or not.
No.
I have no idea.
What do you think about it?
I think it's stupid, and I think that's awesome. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
But I couldn't write an essay about the geometricity of it or anything like that.
So they trusted Mccackey's opinion, and they went ahead with letting Ron Robertson-Swann make this piece of art. Max Delaney, who's the artistic director and CEO of ACCA, wrote a really great piece about Volt a couple of years ago, and he touches a lot on the impact of Vault and also, what Melbourne was like then. He says, initially, there was great fanfare, but it very quickly developed into a much publicised controversy, attracting huge public and media debate. It became a staple on the front page of Melbourne's newspapers for 6 months or so. People are just angry about a piece of art that has not been unveiled yet.
It's so funny.
It's pretty wild.
Well, I mean, it must have been a slow news year.
Yeah, it must have been 6 months.
6 months
front
at this on the
page.
front page.
What's going on?
What was happening?
Oh, we're a pretty cultured city.
Yeah. Okay.
These days, it's still art on the front page every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's the art section. It's the largest section.
Oh,
of
it's
the
huge,
paper.
exactly. Yeah.
Breakfast radio duos, Pig Dog and the Runt Man. I'll still take callback on it.
What do you reckon?
What do you reckon about Vault?
Vault. To be honest, I like the geometricity of it.
Well said, Pig Dog.
Which one of you is Pig Dog?
I guess me.
Who am I, Runt Boy?
Runt Boy, that adds up.
Yeah, checks out.
Can I have a name?
Yeah, you can do the news. You're a journalist.
It's true, I'm a journalist.
What do you want? I'll give you a name.
Come on then, Pig Boy.
Cheryl on the news desk.
Scarf woman.
Scarf.
Guess what she wore to work on her first day on the job? We like to have a bit of fun around this office.
Head hair.
Head hair. I'm going to move on.
Thanks, Cheryl.
So it didn't really help that, like I mentioned before, the sculpture was unnamed for about 2 years, which lent itself to people giving it nicknames.
Okay.
I mean, Robertson-Swann himself, he referred to it as the Thing. The steel workers who were hired to actually construct it and weld it all together, they called it Steelhenge.
Oh, that's fun.
A bit of fun.
Pretty good.
And most famously, some newspapers called it Yellow Peril, a name many still know it by now. But the Yellow Peril is a racist term. Originally, it applied to Chinese and other Asian immigration to Europe and Australia in the late 19th century. So it's a confusing correlation. But Max Delaney writes, the nickname Yellow Peril demonstrates a conflation of xenophobia and anti-modernist sentiment, which were both pronounced at the time. In the art world too, it was criticised in some quarters as being cool, dominant and impersonal, without regard for the community, a charge often levelled at modernist sculpture. So it seems like the art community were like, modernist. No.
That's funny that they use cool in a derogatory way.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's pretty cool. Oh, thanks. No, in a bad way.
Oh.
You don't want your art to be cool. You want your art to be
Uncool?
lukewarm.
Oh, okay.
That's the dream.
Yeah.
I reckon I'd call it Doritos.
Okay.
Or nachos.
Nachos. Yeah.
Meet you at the nachos.
Okay.
Yeah, like chips and dip, in brackets, sans dip.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Oh,
chips.
yeah.
So
Chips.
it's just chips, but
Corn chips.
yeah.
CC's.
CC's.
Is that what it stands for?
So Queen Elizabeth II opened Melbourne City Square in May of 1980.
That's pretty cool.
And like all new things, the square attracted a lot of criticism. This is just Melbourne City Square. People hated it still. It seemed bare, the video screen was too noisy. They didn't like the starkness. It had like a glazed steel canopy over it. They're like, no, I don't like it. They just hated it. And of course, it wasn't just the City Square that people were upset by. Vault, as it was finally named by now, was met with mixed feelings, but mostly negative.
Okay.
Even the Queen was brought into the issue.
Oh, she was not enthused.
Well, she was asked by reporters.
I'm not pleased by the vote.
No, I'll tell you what she said, and you can do your spot-on Queen impression.
Okay.
When asked by reporters, she was reported to have said that perhaps it could have been painted a more agreeable colour.
Perhaps it could have been painted a more agreeable colour, maybe mauve.
Well, the Queen Elizabeth II, obviously famous for her dull colours.
Yeah.
Never wears a bright outfit.
Never.
Hates bright colours.
Gee, I reckon she's definitely worn Vault yellow before.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put it past her wearing Vault yellow. You know? So Max Delaney again writes, there were various demonstrations for and against Vault, including a public rally in August of 1980 to save our sculpture. So a lot of people got behind it.
Right.
I think the fact that the media, like newspapers in particular, were really shitting on it kind of made some people rally around it a little bit.
Yeah.
That's totally
Underdog
my
kind of thing.
instinct.
Yeah. It very much became a political issue as well. It was the fall guy for opposing factions of the Melbourne City Council. Some part of the Melbourne City Council were really for it, others very much against it. Max also says, a much larger sculpture than we'd ever experienced It was designed so members of the community could walk through, with and around it. It was always supposed to be a commanding of space and a marker of place, but it never quite landed properly. I don't know if Ron Robertson-Swann imagined that we would be sitting inside it.
Yeah, recording inside it.
Yeah.
How many times have people like sheltered under the statue of David? Or the Mona Lisa?
It's got a pretty good bulge. That probably...
Yeah, that's a one-person bulge. This is a multi-person bulge.
Yeah.
You could have a party under here, it'd be fine.
Yeah, and I mean, it being that bright colour as well, like you said, it's supposed to be a marker of place, so it was an easy place to, you know, a good landmark of like the big yellow structure, I'll meet you there, or you'd see it and know where you were. So it makes sense.
Yeah, after a big night out in the city.
Hey!
Vault. I mean, you'd probably vomit from seeing the colour at first, but anyway.
A little bit off-putting, but whatever. So unfortunately, those who opposed the sculpture eventually won the battle, and less than a year after it was unveiled, it was dismantled and moved to a much quieter and emptier part of the city, to Batman Park on the Yarra. It's kind of abandoned a little bit.
I hate it. Don't let these fucking losers win. They suck. They're just going to be like, who's spending time to campaign against this sculpture?
Yeah.
Oh, they're the worst.
And especially because a lot of, like, some of the people that are opposing it so strongly are working for the Melbourne City Council. It's like, do you not have other things you could be working on?
Yeah, and surely, and moving it, that's going to cost even more money.
Yeah, it seems like a bit of effort, but they just, they were against it. But don't worry. Everything turns out.
I really hope it survives.
We're on tenterhooks here.
It was pretty frustrating, the move for Ron Robertson-Swann, because Vault was intended to be responsive to its location, largely through colour. So moving the sculpture to a new, different location significantly distorted the artist's original intention. It's like, well, I made it specifically for that city square, and now it's just in a park that nobody really spends any time in. Doesn't get a lot of foot traffic. It's just kind of shoved away.
Yeah, because like it's an installation, and it was designed to be installed somewhere.
Exactly right. Yeah. So it stayed in Batman Park until 2002. When it was moved to its current position, where we are now, as ACCA opened its new building here in South Bank. There's a man named Jeffrey Wallace who's written a book called Peril in the Square, and he writes, and when late in 2002...
Sorry.
Look, I've just read bits, but I love this guy.
Yeah, it feels like you've got a real sense of the character.
Late in 2002, Vault was moved again to its new home in South Bank after 2 decades as a homeless shelter, favoured target for graffitists, and even a training aid for visiting footballers who appreciated the unpredictable bounce. Lord Mayor John So welcomed it as an old and respected friend.
A lot of people have made arguments about Vault that it took 20 years for the public to catch up onto that style. And I do wonder if these days it would have attracted the same kind of controversy. If anything, it would have been controversial because it was like a white man making modernist sculpture and not something more radical. So, I mean, it's hard to say why the public were really surprised by it, but it sounds like they just weren't used to big yellow sculptures.
This happens a bit where enough time goes by that people will start appreciating things.
Yeah. So Max Delaney, I mean, maybe a little biased because he is the director of ACCA, but he says this is the ideal location for this now. He says it sits happily alongside the Victorian College of the Arts and dance company Chunky Move, amazing name for a dance company, as well as Woodmarsh's iconic architecture, which references the sculptural traditions that Robertson-Swann was promoting with Vault. It belongs to the City of Melbourne, which looks after its care and maintenance. It's become a popular backdrop for wedding photography because of its gold or yellow colour, which represents good luck and prosperity in many different cultures, which is kind of cool. And in a nice sort of, I don't know, it feels like a little bit of justice. After all that fuss, in the late 90s, over half of the Melbourne City Square was sold for the development of the Western Hotel. And in the period between 97 and 2000, the remaining area of the square was totally redeveloped with a much simpler plan, and gravel was introduced. It was just sort of, it was nothing. Like, do you remember? It was like, there was like a Brunetti's and...
Yeah, like a little stream.
Yeah.
Of a water feature, and that was it.
Is there a chance it goes back to where it was meant to be?
I mean, if we knock down a whole bunch of buildings.
Yeah, I'm listening.
Maybe.
And now there's like the big metro tunnel.
Well, that's it, yeah.
Over there.
And so there was this big substantial reduction of its area, and then nearby, just up the road, Federation Square opened in 2002. So now the civic importance of City Square wasn't really it was really diminished. It was like, well, why
Mm.
we've got Fed Square.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Why would a
Love.
city of 4 million people need a second square?
We don't need that many outdoor spaces.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
What we
got Fed
need,
Square.
We're selling it off.
yeah, we need big hotels.
Yeah.
We need big hotels. And yeah, now, like you say, it was closed in 2017 after it was announced that City Square would be acquired and demolished to allow for construction of a new railway station. But apparently, when it's finished, they're kind of going to rebuild it to how it was, but I'm talking like 1997, just the small
Oh,
square.
okay, but this
I
could go
reckon
back.
this should go back.
this
Hell, it
go
looks
back?
sick there. That is like a real brown grey area.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
would pop.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, I think so.
So perhaps it's a good thing that Volt was moved and found a more permanent home in South Bank. It's been here for quite some time now. Eric Rowlandson, who was then the director of NGV, noted in relation to the debate around Volt, similar to what you were saying, Matt, but he said, it inevitably takes 20 years for public acceptance to catch up with the vision of artists. So now people are like, oh yeah, Volt's great. What are you
Yeah.
talking about? I never hated it.
That's so
I was
weird.
always pro-Volt. I love it. It's my favourite piece of art. I
Yeah.
know where it is.
I always got it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I always got
definitely.
it. Love the yellow. It pops.
Yeah.
Love it. I used to visit it at Batman Park all the time. Love
Oh,
it.
yeah.
And there was another great piece written by Charles and Kate Nodram, and they write, time and familiarity seemed to soothe the ruffled feathers of many who had initially disliked the work. This has continued, and today, 40 years down the track, Volt has emerged not just as one of Melbourne's icons, but arguably as the best known public sculpture in Australia.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there you go.
Even more than Michelangelo's David. That's one of ours, isn't
Australia.
Oh,
it?
yeah, the copy,
That's not one
the
of
copy they've got on the Gold Coast, you mean? Yeah.
And yeah, that's the story of Ron Robertson-Swann's Volt.
I love Ronnie Swanee.
It really rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, he's the best. And I'm a fan, I think.
Yeah, I like it.
I think you're right. I think it would be great to see it back in like a more central populated area, but you know, at least it's respected here.
My favourite thing about Ronnie Swanee is he didn't even build it.
Yeah.
I want to be the kind of artist
Oh,
who
yeah,
goes,
yeah.
it's sort of yellow.
You're an ideas man.
We've got angles.
Yeah.
And they go, you put something together.
Yeah.
If that's art, then I want in. So,
How do we get somebody else to do this?
do you think of this as art?
Yeah, this isn't art. Sorry to disappoint you.